Call our meeting to order of the Lake Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees for August 12th, 2024. All members are present, and we do have a quorum established. Move on to our next item, which, if you would, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, if you'll please rise, and we will say our pledges of allegiance, led by Carla Landrum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. We're going to stick with Carla Landrum here on our next item, which is our introductions. Welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Brown, President Stacy, and trustees, I'd like to introduce the newest members of the LDISD administrative staff. And first of all, I wanted to let you know that Diana Calderon, our new assistant principal at Lake Dallas Elementary School, is unable to join us tonight because they're having their open house. She will be recognized at the August 26th meeting, though. First up is Julie Bartley. You come join me, Julie, our newly named assistant principal at Lake Dallas Middle School. Ms. Bartley began her career with Lake Dallas ISD in 1996 as a paraprofessional at Lake Dallas Middle School. After earning her bachelor's degree in teaching certification, since 2005, Ms. Bartley has worked as an 8th grade language arts teacher as well as girls athletic coach. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in interdisciplinary studies with a minor in reading from Texas Woman's University. She earned her Master's of Education in Education Administration from Lamar University and is currently working on her PhD in Global Leadership, also at Lamar University. Ms. Bartley holds a 4-8 English Language Arts and Reading Certification, ESL certification, and her Principal EC through 12 certification. Please join me as we applaud Ms. Bartley in her latest career accomplishment and welcome her to the LDISD administrative staff. Next, Melanie Vasquez, newly named assistant principal at Lake Dallas High School. Ms. Vasquez's career began in 2000 in Birdville ISD, where she taught math, science, social studies, and reading at North Oaks Middle School. In 2017, she then moved into the assistant principal role for 7 years at Sanger Middle School in Sanger ISD. Ms. Vasquez earned her Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies with a focus in biology from the University of Texas at Arlington, and her Master's of Education in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, also from the University of Texas at Arlington. She holds certifications in elementary biology, elementary self-contained, generalist 4-8, English as a second language, grades 1-8, and Principal EC through 12. Please join me in extending a warm Falcon welcome to Melanie Vasquez. I'd like to next introduce Amina Jackson, who is joining the Lake Dallas Middle School team as instructional coach. Ms. Jackson holds a generalist 4-8 certification and began her teaching career in West Orange Cove Consolidated ISD, where she ultimately served as math instructional coach. She's also worked in Houston ISD, Spring ISD, Pflugerville ISD, and for Austin Achieve and International Leadership of Texas, where she served in various roles, including math and science teacher, campus testing specialist, LPAC coordinator, and dual language math instructional coach. Ms. Jackson earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Sam Houston State University and her Master's of Education in Educational Leadership from Concordia University. Please join me in extending a warm Falcon welcome to Amina Jackson. I'd like to next introduce Erin Glowney, who has joined the Lake Dallas Special Programs Department as Lead Diagnostician Dyslexia Coordinator. Ms. Glowney began her career in 2001 at DeGan Elementary School in Louisville ISD as a resource inclusion co-teacher. She then moved to Denton ISD in 2010, where she worked as resource inclusion co-teacher at Cross Oaks Elementary School before becoming an educational diagnostician. Ms. Glowney earned her Bachelor of Science with a major in interdisciplinary studies from the University of North Texas and her Master of Education in Special Education with a concentration in Educational Diagnostician, it's a mouthful, also from the University of North Texas. She holds certifications in mathematics, self-contained 1 to 8, generic special education grades pre-K through 12, English as a second language supplemental, and educational diagnostician. Please join me in welcoming Erin Glowney to Lake Dallas ISD.
All right. And we'll conclude our introductions, and we'll move on to our next item, which is executive session. The open session of the meeting will adjourn. The Board of Trustees will reconvene an executive session pursuant to one or more of the sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. The Board of Trustees will reconvene in open session to take any final action, decision, or vote on a matter deliberated in executive session, and it is 5:37. It is 6:28, and we are back in regular session. Our next item is public comment. We have nobody signed up for that, so we'll move on to our next items, which are the information items hosted by John Modica. Our first one is efficient operations, extracurricular activities for absences by John Modica.
That's right. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Brown. Yes, the first here we're going to talk about extracurricular activities and their related absences. So according to the SAW, Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, we have a vibrant student body that participate a lot in student programming, extracurriculars, student organizations, and so in accordance with the SAW, the board can set aside certain activities or extracurriculars that don't count against students when they're not on campus or in class. So that is what we're presenting tonight, is for the board to consider and approve. So that lengthy bullet there says just that if a student is not on campus or in class, but they're participating in a school event, approved by the school board and under the direction of a staff member, then it does not count against the student as far as attendance. So those categories would be, those first two are ones that we always think of, but those are athletic events, individual games, tournaments, competitions, fine and performing arts, so think of band, choir, high steppers, cheer, those would all fall into that. Career and technology programs, so this would be FFA. Showcases, think of TAFE, our future educators, when they go into trainings or even competitions there and showcases. Some others might be even some required training, like pharmacy tech or our fire academy. They have specialized training that may happen during the school day. And of course, even required testing for certification for those career and technology programs. And then of course, school-sponsored events and field trips, those would also fall into this. Superintendent and campus principal approved activities. So these would be those outliers, like a student goes to talk to the counselor, but that conversation takes longer than anticipated. An ARD meeting or a 504 meeting. So these are normal school activities, but the student is not actually in the classroom. So we don't want to penalize the student for not being in attendance there. So these would be those extracurricular activities related to an absence that the board could consider and approve. Do I have any questions on this? And this is a consent item for you guys to consider and approve.
All right, is there any questions or comments? Oh, okay, don't go anywhere, because the next item is our attendance committees.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Along the same vein, according to FEC Legal and Local, the board shall appoint campus attendance committees. So it doesn't say it has to be one, it can be more than one. You'll see on this next slide what we are presenting to the board. But this is those categories where a student has gone, the rule of the percentage of 90, right? The TEA and the state accountability says that for a student to maintain or to obtain a credit and a grade in the class, they have to be in the chair 90% of the time. Well, again, that kind of goes against everything we just talked about with extracurriculars. Or in some cases, students have medical waivers or conditions that are beyond their control. And so this is when these attendance committees would come in. Parents and students could present to them and give their documentation or plead their case as far as why they should be, these hours should be waived to meet that 90% rule. So this FEC says just that. The board shall appoint one or more committees to attend to this and hear the petitions from students and parents. And then also it says the classroom teachers shall comprise the majority of the attendance committee. So we're presenting to the board to consider and approve our individual campus committees, so one per campus, or one at each campus, composed of the campus principal or the assistant principal, a counselor, school nurse, and then 4 classroom teachers. And then some administrative regulations just to go along with those committees, just to give guidance for our campus principals. Each year they'll select a new committee member to serve on these committees. We're also giving guidelines that we prefer to have some years of experience for these classroom teachers. So prefer to have 5 years of experience and at least 2 years working in the district. We know our district is different than Denton, Louisville around us. And we want these teachers to be invested in our kids. They know their stories, they know their families. We want them to hear their stories and then make good decisions based on that family. And so we're asking them to have some experience, but also just experience within our district so that they know our families and our community. And then finally, inevitably, if a staff member cannot serve on this committee, or ironically, if maybe the staff member is out on leave, the campus principal can designate another committee member to stand in his place if it's for an extended period of time. We've also provided you the exhibit. This is just guidelines again for our campuses. That first one is just a letter that actually goes to parents, just acknowledging or giving them notice that you're on the brink of maybe not hitting this 90% rule. And so we're going to form a committee. And then that second page is giving guidance to parents to say you can present as documentation, you can actually come and present to the committee, you can sit down with the committee and tell us what's happening. And then again, just that bottom half of that second page is the regulations we talked about before, the roles and the staff members involved in the committee, and then the actual regulations of that campus administrator to form the committee and uphold it. Do I have any questions on attendance committees for the campuses?
Any questions or comments from the board? Nope. Okay. And because it is Greg Bartley's birthday, we're going to keep you up on the stand.
Appreciate that. Happy
And you're
birthday.
going to talk about district fees, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you need your cup?
No, I've got one.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah, so this is a topic we've had discussions over the last few months with you guys many times. Tonight we are ready to bring you consideration approval of student and district fees. So just a reminder, this is FP, but the board may approve payments as far as membership dues, personal athletic gear, equipment purchased by the school, and then those individual products, those personalized products, thanks to class rings, yearbooks, graduation announcements, things like that. Again, the school would just basically serve as the transaction. We would collect the fees, purchase the product, turn around and hand it to the student. So miscellaneous fees, or those fees that I guess don't fall into a certain category. The first two items really haven't changed since we brought this to you last month. So those are technology based. So you can see the fee for a lost or damaged cord or a Chromebook case. A lost or damaged Chromebook, the first and second offense are $75 each, and that third offense, it's going to be whatever the cost to repair or replace the item is passed on to the student. Parking and seat time has changed since the last time we brought this to you last month, but we're saying no fee required for those two items. And then summer school, you also see a change there. In the past, we've set a $100 fee per student per course. Moving forward, we're saying a $100 flat fee. So if a student's taking one course or three courses in that semester, they only get charged $100. Those last three really haven't changed either. So college entrance exams, think of TSI, ACT, SAT. We purchase the test for the student and then administer it, just at cost. Clubs and organizations, if there are state and national guidelines, we follow those, but everything else would be campus principal approved. So Spanish Club wants to purchase a shirt, we purchase a shirt, turn around and get to the kids. Other examples like that. Optional items would be just what we talked about before. Those are going to be those personalized items like yearbooks, class rings. If an organization wants a shirt, but then they want the student's name on the back, right? That would be a personal item. Nobody else is going to want that shirt unless it's my name. But we would turn around, purchase it, and then hand that to the kiddo. But these would be those miscellaneous. So those are all approved at the campus level by the sponsor and the campus principal. And as far as extracurricular or your sports and band, you'll see there the 262 plus personal items. So those personal items being shirts, the water jugs, their names, the gloves, things that fit the student. That's where that extra personalized item comes on top of the 262, and that brings you to that $398 for a member, and then a $498 for a returning member that we brought you last month. So really no change there in band. The biggest change would be here with the sports: football, volleyball, baseball, softball, girls and boys soccer, girls and boys basketball. We're saying $50 fee for each student per sport, but a maximum of $100 per student. So if I'm in football, basketball, and baseball, I'm only charged $100. If I'm just playing basketball, it's only $50. So that's what we're looking at moving forward. All other sports, we're not collecting fees because they're smaller sports, and there's no need there. We can absorb the cost, but there could be still other personal items. Think of, again, baseball, if we're going to purchase a hat for them, we'll do that. If the golf team wanted to do a certain glove cover, we'll take the funds, purchase it, and then turn around and hand those to the kids. But that would be those personal items that come through. All of these still fall under FP local, so I just want to make sure we're aware of that. That's the local policy. If a family or a student is unable to pay, then we don't make them pay. So these all fall under that, all student fees collected by the district. So if we ever have verification that a family is unable to, we don't pass that fee along. Any questions with student fees?
I do have some questions regarding the athletic fees. What is the financial impact by changing those fees? I know that when we talked about those fees in the workshop, they're kind of all over the place. Some are really high, some are really low, some are right in here. Similar Sports had two different. By changing it to this, what's the financial impact?
More scrutious accounting on the back end with those boosters. But a lot of that went to student meals.
To what?
To student meals, a lot of those fees. When they collected money up front, it was to buy, honestly, Chick-fil-A or things down the road for the kids. So I think what you'll see moving forward now is more fees and line items going through the activities funds at the campuses. As in, a great example is band there, right? The 262, but then all the personal items. So all those other items purchased by baseball, by football, like if they need shorts, we'll find out the cost for shorts. We'll collect that funds, we'll send it through the activities funds, and we'll turn around and purchase those for the kiddos. So it's...
So our activity fund is, when they pay those fees, that goes into that activity fund, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a line item per sport.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is the money we're asking for now, $50 per student per sport, versus what we had before, is that going to create a difference in between what we were getting and what we're going to get now?
It could, but I know Coach Head has gotten with the business office already to kind of calculate if we need to supplant funds or move things around on our end to make sure the kids still have what they need.
So one of the biggest things was that these fees will be deposited into an activity account, not the booster account.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens right now is they're deposited into the booster account, and then simultaneously the boosters are doing a great job of fundraising to supplement that. And so instead of the fees being in the same place as the supplemental funds, if you will, the booster clubs will still supplement, but it'll need to be through a donation that happens to the school district. And so we're rerouting it the way that it's supposed to be done, so that the fees that are collected go into a school district owned account as opposed to a third-party booster account.
Okay.
We did look at it last year for football. The booster club supplemented about $4,000 in meals, and so Coach Head is still going to be dependent on them to assist in supplementing those fees. A lot of what was being charged, though, was coming down to the personal items that are being charged. So that we're charging $75 for a sport, but of that $75, $50 or $25 of it is going to buy the team shirt, the workout shirt, or the warm-up shirt, or there was a significant amount that was being supplemented by the quarterback club for the warm-up outfit for the football team, and so we'll still be working with the booster clubs on that piece. The other thing that this does is it aligns the boys and girls sports. So as we were reading into our boosters and our fees, there was a possible Title IX concern because we were charging one gender more than another gender. And so it costs more to play baseball than it does softball, or costs more to play volleyball than it does, boys basketball, whatever the case is. And so this aligns all of the fees across the board so that it doesn't matter what you're playing. These are the sports that we charge a fee for.
Do these fees, do they go towards, because I know like in basketball and I guess baseball, I guess even volleyball too, is like entering tournaments and stuff like that. Does that pay for that too?
There
those
are
fees?
some. Yes, there are some. But the booster clubs have supplemental funds that they've provided for that also. One of the next big steps here is meeting with the Booster Club presidents and going through what it is that the Booster Clubs are raising funds for and how those funds are being used to support the district and aligning our practices with the UIL Booster Club requirements. So there's a significant amount of work that comes after this to make sure that we're still not shortchanging any of the programs, that we're still able to do all of the things that we were doing before. This is an attempt to make sure that all of the funds that are coming into the district are equitable for all students, and to make sure that it's being processed in a manner that keeps us in compliance with the UIL requirements.
Will more money, will the district have to pony up more money?
Right, and it sounds like that may be the case, and I'm not judging the merits of that. It sounds like they have a choice. I think words of your mouth, but my question was more less the mechanics and more.
Well, that was my question, was what's the financial impact? Is it gonna create a difference between what we were getting, and are we going to have to make that up? What did we know ballpark what that difference is?
Based on what Coach had provided to us, what is in place right now with the boosters, no, that it's not going to make a significant difference there. The biggest, if you go back one slide, the biggest impact was actually under the parking fees. And Mr. Eversole's already worked with the high school to make up the difference there. That was $4,000 to $5,000 that was being collected in parking fees annually. And so they use that money for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they use it to help kids that need clothing. They might use it to pay some fees for some students that may be economically disadvantaged and not have funds for other fees. There were a variety of reasons that ways that they were using that parking fee money. But that has already been addressed through the budget process. The seat fee, there's a way for us to do it without it costing the district any money. The summer school, we actually calculated that amount based on the number of hours that we have to pay teachers to come in to teach summer school. And the logic there is that the district's already paid for you to take a class, you failed the class. So now you're coming in to take it, it's costing us twice now for you to take that class. And so that $100 flat fee is the amount that it costs us to have a teacher in the classroom, 25 students in a classroom to do credit recovery. And so the only place that we found that gap that was concerning was the parking fees. The athletics, based on the funding information that they submitted from the booster clubs, they had enough money to cover both pieces.
I think what you're seeing is the $50 is a flat fee, but they're probably going to be paying more than that, because they're probably going to say, okay, football, you're going to pay $50, and then you're going to need to pay $10 for a shirt, and you're going to need to pay $20 for game day meals. So but this just cleans it up a little bit.
Well, it is cleaner to me. I better turn on my microphone, I'll get in trouble. It is cleaner to me to have a flat fee across sports.
Right.
But when you're talking about what does it cost, I know, because we use that money for like kids' meals too.
But they could work that in though, if they may pay $50 to this fund, to the athletic fund, but then if the booster says we're going to pay game day meals, then they're going to turn around and write another check to the booster club, however much the booster club says they're going to need for meals. So the booster club takes care of that piece.
I think the way that band does it, maybe this will help. So
Right.
The way band does it is the $262 plus the other amounts that were for the personal items, the shirt, the undershirt that they have under their uniform. They had shoes, gloves, hats. water jugs, those types of things, right? That total amount came to $498. When we took out all of the personal items that the students kept for themselves, that they were not being reused annually, it came down to $262, right? So they pay that amount to the school district, to the band director, right? And that money gets deposited and the water jug is purchased and then given to the student. Then the boosters have an app that they use where they say, okay, Friday night we're going to order from Chick-fil-A. And so if you want to order from Chick-fil-A, they get on the app and the parent orders and it's, $12 or whatever the case is. That money goes to the boosters. The boosters then go and they buy the Chick-fil-A and they bring the food for the kids to eat. So in the case of athletics, what was happening that was different is we were assessing a fee. The fee wasn't actually covering all of the meals. And so there was a discrepancy there. But the athletics, they're paying for it directly instead of the boosters assisting and taking on that like the band does. Does that make sense? And
I mean, I see what they're doing. I don't think that it makes sense, but I mean, I'll stop there. I mean, I see how it works, but it just seems like there's so many moving parts here. And I understand we have to, work together to get all this done, but it just seems like it's even more convoluted in my head now, the more that I ask,
What happens to that man, child, that can't afford that?
The booster
Who's still covering?
will still have,
They
the booster
purchase-
provides scholarships.
And that's the same with athletics, right?
The same with the Booster Club Athletics would help
Correct.
provide scholarships. And in the booster, well, when I was there, and maybe different, Bruce can, but when I was there, that band fee, that $262 or whatever, if there were some kids that needed help with that, the Booster Club would donate to the activity fund to help those kids as well. The Booster Club helped with those scholarships. And that $262 pays for like the cleaning, the contest fees, things like that. So that $50 football, volleyball, whatever is gonna pay for that stuff. The kids are, in addition, are gonna pay for their game day shirt, all of that. So it really might be $100 to play football and $125 to play softball, depending on their personal items that they purchase.
So under this system, this brings athletics more in line with the way band is doing it now? Like as far as everything goes through activities counts and then booster picks up the rest as far as meals and things. Is that correct?
that's the goal. Is
Or the
to-
goal.
Yes.
Okay.
The goal is to shift from us depositing fees into a booster account, depositing those fees into an activity account so that it's managed by the school district, and working with our boosters as they have done in a lot of cases, supplementing the meals. And I know there's several boosters that also provide the shirt. If there's a student that can't afford a shirt, they're providing that shirt. Buying additional things that some students may not be able to afford.
Okay.
So going back to your scenario with the three sports that they have $100, let's just say baseball is at the end of the year. I mean, that baseball boosters, then they're gonna have some extra money.
Correct.
Because they're not getting
Yeah,
Well-
that was what it seemed to me, that football is gonna get the lion's share of it, of their $50. They're gonna get all of their $50. Basketball is gonna get all of their $50, or soccer. And then when you get to baseball or softball, it's like, yeah.
I think because it's all going into one activity account also, that Coach Head will be able to spread that out. He'll be able to manage those funds instead of it getting deposited into separate individual booster accounts. So Coach Head will be responsible for managing those funds between them to make sure that the baseball and softball teams, or the soccer team, or whoever it is, that they don't have to make up for that at the end of the year because it's all been spent. They also have fundraisers that they do as an athletics department, and so that gets deposited into a general activity account as well. So that money, according to Coach Head, that money gets spread out against all the accounts, if you will, against all the, not against, but for all of the individual sports. And so that's why some sports haven't been charging, like golf or tennis, for example. They haven't charged but they still have access to the general activity account that's available for all of the students.
Have we considered, in light of Title IX, the legal impact of taking booster money and giving it to the school, and then the school going, just like he mentioned, line shares, various sports are going to take line share of money by nature. So if we had a Title IX complaint, and it comes, well, you're spending more over here, in the past, the booster clubs said, no, we bought all that, okay, and the school's clear of it. But now they're going to give us the money, and we're going to be spending it. And so how do we defend, a complaint of that nature?
So when a booster club donates something, whether it be money to supplement, a particular activity or equipment of some kind, then that comes through a donation to the school board. So the board policy says that the superintendent can accept any donation that does not have an intended purpose. When a boosters, and let's just say the softball booster club wants to donate a set of baseball gloves, right? Then that has an intended purpose. So they'll submit that information to Coach Head. He'll fill out that donation form. That donation form comes to the board, and then the board has the option to accept or reject any donation that comes with an intended intent. And so if the boosters go out and they fundraise and they buy, $5,000 worth of gloves and they donate that, then the Title IX issue isn't with the district because we didn't have any control over the booster and what they intended to purchase. It was a donation that we accepted.
Does that include cash?
It does.
Okay.
If somebody were to walk in tomorrow and say, here's a check for $500, you can use it for whatever you want, that does not have to go to the board. But if the football quarterback club gives a $10,000 donation for the football team, that has to go to the school board.
Well, I know it's been quite a task to nail all this down, so I appreciate
You're good.
all
And I
that.
appreciate Dr. Brown bringing up one of the biggest factors here was the flat fee across the board. We want that to be equitable because that is compliance with Title IX. So you bring up a good point too, Scott.
And that was kind of one of the things that that was a concern before was, why is this one up here, this one over here, this one down here, and there were weird, not weird sports, weird numbers attached to a sport that you wouldn't think that would have $125 fee versus now you got another sport that was a $50 fee, and it was like, seems like it should be other way around. But I still am a little concerned about that maximum of 100 and then those other sports. I mean, it's like, football and volleyball are going to come first, and then again, basketball or soccer or whatever, and then the order of it. I mean,
Well, and again,
it's like you got twin bobcats fighting over roadkill.
Right. But again, these will be school activities accounts, so we'll have control over those funds. We
Right.
can
Yeah.
distribute evenly.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith
Okay.
has a question.
I'll change it up on the parking. I'm great we're doing away with the fee of it, but I know in the past that it also given a security aspect of it because every
That's a good
student
point.
had a sticker in their window. So are we still, so we know who was on campus
sir.
and
That's still a protocol moving forward is the stickers. We'll just be giving them to the students.
cool.
The
And
the
that does come
procedures
down
won't
as campus
change.
safety. Sorry.
No, it's okay. The procedures won't change. It's just the funding piece that will change. And we may go through this year and come back with, we need to revise it again next year. We'll have to see how it goes. But if you look at the fees that are being assessed in other school districts, the $100 is also in alignment with what other school districts are doing as flat fees for UIL, regardless of the number that you play. So we have some resources that we can reach out to and ask them, for some help if they can help us understand how they divvy that up and how that works. We did not want to go above the local areas and what local school districts are charging, and this seemed to be kind of the maximum amount also that other school districts were assessing. So we didn't want to say $50 for everybody and you're paying more here than you would pay in another school district. We wanted to see if we could have some alignment there.
Any other questions or comments? No, y'all are waiting on me. All right. Thank you very much. Our next item is, oddly enough, Mr. Modica talking about agency collaboration on provision of shared services between Lake Dallas ISD and Girls Clubs of Greater Tarrant County.
Yes, sir. And spoiler alert for everybody following at home, I have the next one as well.
Stole my thunder.
Sorry.
I'll come up with something. Don't worry.
Okay, you got plenty of time. So yes, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tarrant County reached out to us. They actually are now extending into Denton County, providing services here. So they reached out to our district and would like us to form a partnership. And before I actually go into details of the programs they provide, this information has already been shared with the campus principals as well as the SHAC committee, and both groups individually thought that our students could benefit from this. So just knowing that, we want to bring this to the board as well and be studious and have you guys be informed. And because we would enter an MOU, you should have a say in that. So that is a consideration and approval item for you as well tonight. So yes, you can see here, Boys and Girls Club of Tarrant County, they've been programming for well over 30 years. They are funded through the Texas Health and Human Services, and they actually extended their grant, which is why they're now going into Denton County and approached us for a partnership. All the services and programs they provide are free to our students, families, and the school district. And I'll skip down to those last two. It was a no-brainer for us, for the principals and the SHAC committee. All of their programs they offer are evidence-based, best practice-based, and they all align to our TEKS, whether it be the health courses themselves or the health and human services courses within our CTE program. And every staff member they send to our campus is highly trained. They're certified social workers as well as degreed at a bachelor's degree or higher. So they actually provide 3 different categories of programming. Either be far-reaching to every student of all ages, or they can even dig down and do small groups, 6 to 12 students that's very focused on a certain program or curriculum. And within those 3 categories, they actually have 3 different program types. So we'll go into all those. But you can see the highest reaching, the universal, that would literally be every kid across every age. The youth prevention selective, those are gonna be more of your probably classroom-based. You can do pullouts, you could even do a little larger group, but these are gonna be not as far-reaching, a little more focused on the curriculum at hand or what program we're providing, or maybe behavioral health services. And then the indicated programs, that's going to be a very focused group. So these would be small groups of 6 to 12. We'll go into details of that, but these would be students that are exhibiting signs of substance abuse, or maybe there's substance abuse at the home that we're aware of, things like that, or they're actually exhibiting behavior problems that are manifesting that we want to be preventative about and give them coping skills. So the first program would be Botvin's Life Skills. So these would be 3rd to high school students. You can see their weekly programs where they actually come out and spend time with the kids. So this would be very similar to our Leader in Me. It's about goal setting, it's about peer relationships, decision making, and about just managing stress and anxiety. So this would be far-reaching, just preventative, proactive measures for all students, talking about mental health and just good decision making. Positive action, you really get into kinder and high school as well, so this would be another universal program. You could do it in large group or in classroom setting, but these are going to be very mindfulness. So these are all about positive thinking, no matter what scenarios and situations you're faced with, just how to spin that for your good and the good of others around you. So it's just about improving your mental health, the conflict resolution, your peer-to-peer relationships, and the things of that nature. That would be the second program, Positive Action. Learning to Breathe. This would be your 5th grade through high school, so really your secondary students. This is really about mindfulness again, but stress reduction, and identifying and managing your emotions. And again, this is just enhancing your emotional regulation and really giving kids those coping skills, those strengths and skills they have to just get through difficult situations and move on. And the last one would be very specific based. These would be small groups, 6 to 12 students at a time. You could do anywhere from 1st to secondary students, but these are going to be students that are either experiencing some substance abuse, or maybe they're having discipline issues or behavioral health issues that we're aware of. And so we're really sitting down with these kiddos and coming alongside to give them social skills and coping skills and goal setting and managing emotions so that they're not manifesting these behaviors or turning towards substance abuse. It gives them some more better coping skills. And so, as we said, all these programs, the 3 categories, they're all aligned to our TEKS, whether it be the health classes or our health and human services classes, as well as best practices in the American School Counselor Association. So this is just another arm of guidance counseling for our students. The best part about this program at Boys and Girls Club, it's very customizable. So you heard those 3 categories and the 4 programs. They really come in, they sit with our campus principals, and we figure out what program works best and how to implement it. So it can be classroom-based, it could be large group, or it could be, like I said, small groups. So if approved by the board, this program, that would be our next steps, is doing needs assessments by the campus. As you all know, each campus has their own personality, they have different needs. That would be it, is sitting with Boys and Girls Club to say what programs you can provide based on our needs, and then discussing a plan on how to implement that. So whether it be a special time set aside for kids to come in and get this program, or maybe it is pull-out classes because we've got students that we know are going through substance abuse or some other outside difficulty that we're having to help them cope with and things like that. Another disclaimer with this, all these programs are opt-in, right? The student would not go through these programs without a parent opting in for their child to receive these services or this program. And yeah, that was it. Any questions on the Boys and Girls Club partnership?
Any questions from the board?
One thing we really liked is that it wasn't a Barney, I love you, you love me
Yeah.
type of curriculum. It was really grounded in the TEKS and the standards.
Very nice. All right. And because I've looked ahead in the agenda, I know it's you again, and this is the last one.
Not going anywhere.
This is our strategic plan priority 4.
Yes, sir. So over the past few months, we have brought you the 4 priorities of our strategic plan. We've hit on 1 through 3, and tonight I'm presenting on priority 4, which is efficient operations. A large chunk of priority 4, as you know, is actually financial stewardship and budgets and numbers. I'm not presenting on that. Mr. Reversol will have a full presentation for you here in a minute. So I'm going to hit on the other 2 objectives, which is facilities and school safety. So yes, part of the strategic plan is well-maintained facilities, and what that means for us. You can see here the facilities last year. Mr. Talbert and his team completed well over 2,000 work orders. Comes out to about eight work orders a day. Now, bear in mind 2 things. One being that there are probably many work orders that weren't actually entered in the system that they still completed. And then 2, they're having to juggle and work around students because many of those work orders, probably half, they can't do with staff or students on campus. So they really are working in marginalized, compressed amount of time. So just really proud of the work that David and his team does with our facilities and keeping them maintained. Moving forward, as far as goals down the road, one of the goals we set is a response time of 48 hours from that work order. So response time, I was very intentional in the wording. We're not saying that it'll be complete in 48 hours. Response time means that the work order is put in and it's either assigned to someone or they go out and actually see the work to be done and they assess, do we need to contract this out? Do we have the parts and the labor for it? Or can we just do this immediately? And then they prioritize based on that. But within that 48 hours, someone's assigned to it and they're communicating back to the department or the campus to say, here are the next steps. So that was a goal we really wanted to put in place. A measurable that we're working through the strategic plan with facilities. If you remember the Upbeat survey that we send out every year, we do this in the fall and the spring. There's one question that we tease out of there for facilities. The school building is clean and well maintained. So in the spring, facilities had a 73%. Over the next, every corresponding year, we'd like that to jump by 3 points. So truly by the end of the 25-26 school year, we hope to be at 80% as far as that metric. And that's the goal for our facilities team. Safe school environment. There are a lot here with safety, and as you guys are well versed now with House Bill 3 and the legislation, there was a lot of things that schools are now responsible for, as we should be, and the safety of our students. So I didn't put it all here, but one of the primary goals is an armed security officer at every campus. So we were compliant with this last year. As of August 12th, 6:30, we're compliant this year, and we have an officer at every campus. Thank you to Corinth PD and Lake Dallas PD for that. As you know, Chief Springer has a lot of work ahead of him in organizing that piece of it as well. The second bullet, proud to say that we passed all of our internal or intruder door audits. So we've talked about this numerous times last year. This is where Region 11 will send out a staff member, and they actually try to breach our building, but they see if they can gain entry into our building. So the first part of that phase, or the first phase of that audit, is to do that. See if they can enter our building through 3 or 5 doors. If they cannot, they go to the front entrance. And the second part of that audit is to actually go check into the building and see if we're following our visitor protocols. And then the third phase of that audit is an administrator or the SRO themselves. They actually walk with that staff member the entire building, and they check every door. So out of all 5 random audits, we don't know when they're coming, we passed 100% of those. So we're very proud of that. And then finally, that last piece, like I said, there's a long list from House Bill 3, as well as that, I just call it the infrastructure bill, but following Uvalde, all the infrastructure we had to put in place, like the bullet-resistant film, the secure vestibules up front, that litany of list, that's all here, and we are compliant with all those metrics. But then there's also things with the trainings, AEDs, CPR training. This year we passed a policy on opioids antagonists, or the ARCANs on campus, so assuring that they're in the right spots according to our policy and people are trained. And then, of course, just the emergency response protocols. So those monthly drills and standard response protocols that each campus does, assuring that we're up to code and compliance with those. So when it comes to the actual strategic plan and measuring that out with students or school safety, the highest mark you can get with student safety is compliant or sufficient. So the good news is we are compliant and sufficient in all those metrics. It's hard to build out on a plan on that, but the goal here is to maintain those, right? So that every day our students are safe as they walk in the classroom and on our campus, our staff as well. So that is the goals there, is to keep those metrics steady at compliant and sufficient. There will be some pieces, I'm sure, layered in a year or two with the vulnerability audits. That'll be come down the road with Chief Springer, and as those come out, but I'm sure that'll work its way into our strategic plan eventually. Any questions on this? You can see here, as we said, that's our baseline, and then where we would like to be the years moving out. As far as the item in your consent, it's actually all 4 priorities. So we brought you these 4 priorities over the past few months that you've had a chance to look at, and we talked through and where we are and where we'd like to be. So in your consent item that you can consider and approve, it's actually all 4 of those priorities all in one document for you to approve as our strategic plan moving forward. Any questions with that?
Any questions? No questions.
Okay.
That it? You
Yes,
sure?
sir.
You
That's
sure?
all.
Promise. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for being a trooper. Don't forget your cup. All right.
You should offer him a foot massage for all of that hard work, sir.
Right. Wes Eversole is next up with our construction update.
Well, good evening, President Stacy.
I've lost control. Totally.
Dr. Brown, Board, good evening. Happy birthday, Mr. Bartley. Congratulations. We bring you a construction report of your birthday this evening as well. So, so tonight, kind of give you a feel for where we are on construction. This schedule has not changed through the duration of the construction process. We're pretty close to completing phase 1 and phase 2A, which I'll talk about in a minute. Tennis courts, I'll talk about that in a minute. Actually, I'm going to talk about everything in just a minute. But that's a picture that I shared with you 7 weeks ago, I guess, at our board meeting 7 weeks ago, and that's where we were. And that's the band hall under construction 3 weeks after we moved out. That's a picture this weekend. And so, so we'll be moving, students will be here just day after tomorrow. And so, so Miss Kennedy and her staff are busy putting things back into their place. And so, but we'll be ready to go for students. And hats off to Miss Kennedy and her staff. This has been some work on their side. And so, but we're getting mighty close. But that's a picture of the band hall. The picture on the left is the band hall, and then we've got two areas, the ensemble area. That's another picture of the ensemble area. That's the choir on the left-hand side. And that's what it looked like on Saturday, with the sound rooms in the background in choir. On the right-hand side, those were the tennis courts. The way they looked, I guess, this weekend, and we poured concrete today, and so we had a concrete pour today. I'm not sure what our schedule is tomorrow, but we'll be finishing these concrete pours here. If not today, if we didn't finish today, we'll be finishing it pretty soon. And on the left-hand side, that's just a picture of construction. You can see the ag building in the background, and we're doing dirt work to prepare for the new 25,000 square foot career and tech building. And so things that I didn't get a picture of, the fire lane is complete on behind the building. We have some landscaping to do. It is under construction, but it's safe. We've got a lot of fences up, that type of thing. That back parking, that back entrance coming into the back of the building is open will be open for students first day. And we've got the two new parking lots, one behind the 3-story, one adjacent to the field house, have been completed. We're just kind of tidying some things up. Also, there's a sidewalk pour that will occur in both those areas, and if that didn't get done today, that will occur real soon. And so that will be additional parking for the high school. We've had to take some parking spots from in front of the building, in front of the big parking lot in front. And so this will hopefully counter that a little bit. Again, we will be adding parking once we remove the tennis courts and start the construction of the career and tech building. We will be adding parking to the front. And so I think at the end, I think we'll have another 100 parking spots at the high school after the second summer. So so we're going through some growing pains, but we're ready for the students to come back for sure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So with the removal of some of those parking spots, essentially that serve the football stadium, how many did we lose there? Say that again on that side.
On the football side?
Yeah. How many did you say we lost there?
We may have lost about 20, and that's really the realignment of the fire lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
We probably lost around 20 spaces there. We've added, gosh, I think it was 30 spaces on the new parking lot adjacent to or right connecting to the field house parking, and approximately that many behind the 3-story facility as well.
Okay. All right. I have concerns during football season because we get so many people thinking that grass is a suitable parking spot, and it's really not, especially when it's wet. And then you get people that just want to park just anywhere. I don't know what type of strategy I know this is a whole different thing, but it ties into this because we're losing spots over there. Maybe we need to look at maybe a little strategy for those 5
we'll
or
need
6
to take a
games
look at it.
we'll have.
We're going to be losing spots on the home side, but gaining spots. I mean, I think our net is the same, but they're not in the same location, right?
Yeah, I always worry about the
that's
home
the issue,
side, though.
right.
That's where it
No, I
seems
agree.
to everybody wants to park over there, and I get it. And that's where it's going to be the most crowded, depending on who our opponent is and how well they travel. But unless we're playing Geyer, I don't think we have a problem.
Right.
That's
I
where
think
we
that
had our
was
biggest
good.
problem.
Right.
So,
I remember.
okay, yeah.
I've got a question for you,
Yes, sir.
Wes, and this is slightly off, but I noticed there were some new barriers between the First Baptist Church and the parking lot where the band practices. And I think those were new. And when I saw them, I was wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, did we not have an agreement with them to use our parking and now all of a sudden we've got barriers for them not to be able to go in there. Has there been a change
Right.
on that?
No, we do have an agreement. When we built the high school back in '98, we built that parking lot first with our agreement with the church. That agreement is still intact. The gates are only to be closed when they need to close the space off when they're practicing. The remainder, they're gonna remain wide open as they have in the past.
They don't have locks, correct? The barriers don't have locks, so even
Yeah,
like
I
on
don't
Sunday
think they
morning,
have-
they could be opened
Yeah, but
up.
they will be opened up.
Right.
The only intention is to just create a little safer environment for our kids when they're practicing and before they practice, because there's been times where they've tried to utilize that space, and there's been cars there and that type of thing. But but you're right, we do have that agreement with the city, with the church, and they've been friends of the district, and we're gonna maintain that and keep that relationship.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Consent agenda are those routine items that can be handled in one motion and vote. Do I have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda?
I do have one
Yes,
quick
sir.
question.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the courses, innovative courses, is it, and I'm not sure who I would ask this, but aren't those, or are those student generated? In other words, student interest brings those courses?
All of those courses are aligned to our new CTE pathway. So for example, the athletic training course, instead of it being sports medicine, will now fall under kinesiology. And so those are courses that across the state, any school district can submit an innovative course for consideration. And if the state approves it, the only way the school district can offer it is if the Board of Trustees approves it as part of their pathway.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Baird. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Tucker. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval, please indicate. And it passes unanimous. Thank you. And on to our next item, which are action items. The first of which is consideration approval of budget update and authorize the publishing of the proposed tax rate and the notice of public meeting to discuss budget and tax rate for the 2024-2025 school year. Oh, hi.
Okay.
Mr. Eversole.
Back again. Okay, so, again, we're getting close to the end of our budget calendar, thank goodness. And so tonight we'll be reviewing our federal programs, give you final budget update on our general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund. And then we do have a meeting scheduled in 2 weeks to have our public hearing, adopt our budget and our tax rate. And so, again, this hadn't changed, and we keep this up each and every time. The basic allotment hasn't changed since 2019. The state calculates the district's maximum compressed tax rate, which we talked a little bit about last time. We're going to talk about that again this time. And higher property values do not mean more general fund revenue. And so here's well, I think we've received this information since our last board meeting, although we may have just received it that Monday, to be honest with you. But this is our taxable values, our freeze-adjusted taxable values as they came in from the appraisal district. We're at $2.967 billion. That's up almost 7% from where we were last year. And so you can see, we've steadily increased pretty dramatically over the past 10 years from 1.3 billion to 2.967 billion as it stands right now. But we're very similar to most school districts in the North Texas area in this increase. So our general fund revenue, last time we didn't have our certified values, so we keyed in the certified values into the template, did the calculations, and we're generating just a little more revenue than we estimated in the past. Some of that has to do with the golden pennies, but more so than that, the biggest increase that we see from last year is the new career and tech FTEs, the career and tech funding that we'll receive from our students that are going through those career and tech classes. And so so we see our revenue at 24.417 million, or 24.4 million. You can see we increased our values pretty substantially, about 7%, but we don't see that, that huge increase in local funding because of the tax rate. State came in at 16.9 million. Federal revenue came at 641 million. And we've talked about this before. We see less funding coming through our SHARS program because of some federal rule changes. We're also going to see less indirect costs because some of our federal funds are going away, specifically ESSER. But overall, we're looking at a slight increase of revenue compared to where we budgeted this time last year. And then the non-payroll general fund expenditures, this has not changed materially since we met last, maybe $20,000 or $30,000. We've made some adjustments. Dr. Brown mentioned we adjusted the high school's budget just a little bit to compensate for some of the parking lost revenue. But some tweaking here. You'll just see the big increase in plant maintenance operation, and that's really a summation of inflation is hitting this. It's hitting everything, to be honest with you. But it is increasing the cost of maintaining our buildings for sure. Utility cost is increasing as well. But as we talked about last night, the cost of property insurance is dramatically increasing, and we talked a little bit about that last time, and we're not out of the ordinary with other school districts as well. So we see that. And then under security and monitoring services, that includes 5 SROs. We talked about that in the past. And then the new position that Mr. Springer is occupying, and money to ultimately start our own police force. And so you'll see the increase there. We also increased a little bit in called other governmental, governmental charges, and that's specifically the Denton Central Appraisal District. We're seeing some increases there as well, and so we're looking at around a $57,000 increase to the cost of Denton Central Appraisal District. And so the general fund expenditures, our payroll, it looks like it's just a little bit less than where we were this time last month. But we're looking at a payroll expenditure spend of $34.416 million. Our non-payroll expenditures, $7.9 million, summing up to $42.3 million. And so, so there's the expenditures, and then when you compare that to the estimated revenues that we talked a couple slides ago, we're looking at a deficit of approximately $357,000, which is down from our initial estimate. As we've received more information, we've been able to refine our estimations, and this is after the compensation increase that the board approved back in June, I guess, the 2%. Plus, this does not include the $1,000 one-time payment that we made to the returning employees that will be paid in September. That is out of ESSER, so that's not a component of the general fund. But that's kind of where we stand right now. And then the child nutrition budget. This is based on, number one, us moving into the CEP world, and so we'll be feeding all of our students at the elementary school free breakfast and free lunch. Okay, so we'll receive more compensation from the federal government to counterbalance that. And then we talked last time about keeping our meal prices the same at the middle school and the high school for the students. And so we're estimating with those changes a revenue of $2.46 million. We're estimating expenditures of $2.9 million, which we show a deficit of $480,000, but around $430,000 of that $480,000 budget deficit are for one-time expenditures. We've talked about the line at Lake Dallas Elementary School is actually budgeted in the 23-24 school year. It's not going to be here until September, so we moved that into this budget. Also, we have a new line that we'll be installing at the high school. Again, that was budgeted in the 23-24 school year. That's not going to be here until September, so we've included that. So those are one-time expenditures. Remember, we've talked about the reserves that we have in the Child Nutrition Fund because of COVID. We were paid a fair amount from the federal government, so we're just buying that stuff down with some one-time expenditures. And then the debt service fund. Increased property values do provide additional opportunities to retire debt, and so and we've seen a 7% increase in the property values, and so since 2012, and we've talked about this in the past, we've deployed practices either prepaying or refinancing debt, and we've realized about $30 million in interest and principal savings since 2012. And so tonight we're proposing maintaining our current tax rate, and we're proposing a prepayment of debt of around a little over $5 million and resulting in future interest savings of $1 million. And so so that's the budget as it stands right now with that prepayment, with the 50-cent tax rate. And so we did include in your board packet some information for Josh McLaughlin, who's been our financial advisor forever, kind of explaining the details. But let me see what I've got. Not yet. I'll talk about this in just a second. But prepaying debt does help our future bond capacity. It absolutely saves interest costs, saving the taxpayers some money down the road. And then also it helps our first report, because the first report, two components of the first report are debt related. And by refinancing or prepaying our debt over the past several years, we've been able to bring our first rating from a B to an A. And those are the two components that that brought us down to a B. We are now, at least our last report was an A. I'm not going to give you the results yet. That's another presentation for the current report, which will occur this fall. But it's good news as well. So that's another component of the rationale behind prepaying the debt. So our tax rate, which is computed by TEA. The M&O tax rate came in at 0.7552, and so tack on the debt rate of 50 cents, and the total tax rate comes in at 1.2552. So I'll round up to 1.26, and it's a fraction lower than where we were, where we're currently. I think 0.2 cents, something like that, and so it's essentially the same tax rate through compression. And the reason why it is because as a district we've grown higher than the state average, so that we're compressed to the lowest possible rate, rate that TEA will bring us down to. So that's why we are at the floor, and it didn't change. And then this is just a summation of our federal funds with our title, meeting our at-risk kids' needs, IDB preschool, special ed, Perkins vocational, Title II training, Title III English learners, Title IV again, improving the educational environment, and then our instructional, our IMA allotment at $677,000. That's a 2-year allotment. So we've included the tax notice in your board packet, and so the notice must be published no earlier than the 30th day or later than the 10th day before the hearing. Public meeting is scheduled for August 26, 2024. The proposed tax rate for the general fund is 0.7552. Debt service, 0.5, or essentially 50 cents, and 75.52 cents. Total $1.25 and 52.2552. That may be the easiest way to do it. And it represents, again, 0.2 of a cent less than where we are right now. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board? Looks like you're off the hook. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Until now, the next item is, oh, that's right, this is an action item. We had so many information items that y'all lulled me to sleep. Do you have any questions or comments on this item? No?
This was a fantastic presentation.
It-
It's
it
Fez
was.
wearing worthy.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
We made some progress.
If there's no questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we authorize the publishing of the proposed tax rate not to exceed 1.2552 and the notice of public meeting to discuss the budget and tax rate for the 24-25 school year, which is scheduled to be held on August 26th.
So I have a motion by Mr. Smith to approve as stated. Do I have a second? Mr. Bartley seconds. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval, please indicate. And that passes unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our next item, which is consideration approval of an agreement for the purchase of attendance credit, option 3 agreement, and to delegate contractual authority to the superintendent.
Okay, so so this is our recapture discussion that we've had since we've kind of glided into the recapture environment. And so districts wealth above guaranteed yield of $49.28 per weighted average daily attendance are subject to wealth reductions and provisions of Chapter 48 and 49. Used to be 41 and 42, and they changed it. And this is to equalize districts' ability to generate revenue. The state recaptures or requires Chapter 49 school districts reduce their wealth by choosing one of 5 wealth sharing options. So the reality of it is, this is just the recapture component. And so it is a requirement that each and every year a school district that is subject to recapture choose one of these options. And so I'll kind of briefly talk about these options. To reduce your property wealth, you can consolidate with another school district. You can consolidate the land. You can detach and annex by agreement. To school boards must agree to do that, but that is another option the district would have. Purchase attendance credits. A district's with a wealth per WADA above the statutory threshold must or may purchase attendance credits from the state. This is the option that we've always chosen. It essentially nets out our recapture. And so if the district chooses this option, we just net out our recapture and we don't have to go through any of the other methods. There's also a method to contract for education of non-resident students, and so you could bring in some students into the district and work a deal with other school districts. But the most simplest method for a school district like us would be option 3, purchase of attendance credits. And this is the option that the district has chosen ever since we became a recapture school district. And tax-based consolidation is another one, which we talked about it a little bit. So option 3 is a suggestion, is a recommendation. Again, it's what most school districts choose to do. And so, so tonight we have this on the agenda. The school board can approve to delegate these matters to the superintendent. and then allow the superintendent to submit on the district's behalf. And so if that's the decision, we've included the language for the motion. And if this is the direction that the school board would like to go, this is a very prescribed motion. And so we would recommend not changing any of the language that is on in your board packet, if that's a chosen choice.
We promise not to change any of the language.
Okay. Somebody's going to have to read it, though.
Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Eversole? I see your blue light on, Ms. Collier.
You gave me a look. How much does the recapture cost us?
So right
there an
now,
estimate?
we are estimating around $360,000.
Okay.
So last year, it was $250,000, and so we're just dipping our toes into a recapture environment, unlike many school districts that are surrounding us, for sure.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Is this it? What got lost in the thing?
That's the recommended motion.
Okay, I'll read it since everybody's sitting there. For the 2024-2025 school year, we delegated contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code, TEC 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This included approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit for the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit, netting Chapter 48 funding.
So you're approving
Did I
that.
do it
Your motion is to approve.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, your motion is to approve as stated.
Word for word.
Do I have a second? Yeah, the second won't require you to read it. Notice what you're doing. The second by Mr. Appleby. Thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval, please indicate. And that passes unanimous. Thank you. And Mr. Eversole is dismissed, and we'll move on to our next item. Consideration approval of TASB delegate and alternate for the TASB delegate assembly. Dr. Brown.
Yes, sir. You have attached the information from TASB. The delegate assembly is on Saturday, September the 28th, and so the board can nominate and appoint a delegate, and then you're also able to select an alternate for that delegate assembly. That is during TASB in San Antonio.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Does everybody know what we're doing here? We're good? All right. Sometimes I wonder. Do I have a motion on this item? We need to discuss who we're going to nominate, right? Okay. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot.
If, unless somebody wants to do it, I'll be more than happy to do it if you think we
Okay.
need somebody.
Okay.
I nominate Scotty Baird
Okay. For
for the
delegate?
TASB delegates.
Okay. I appreciate that nomination. How about an alternate? Can we discuss an alternate?
I nominate Aaron to be
Okay.
an alternate.
Okay. It's getting hot in here again. Okay, so I have a motion to nominate Mr. Baird as the delegate and Mr. Appleby as the alternate.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
That was too close. I'm going to give that to Mr. Smith, who has the second. All right, is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving Mr. Baird as the delegate and Mr. Appleby as the alternate for the TASB Delegate Assembly, please indicate. And that passes unanimous. Thank you. And our, excuse me, our last action item is consideration approval of policy update 123. Dr. Brown.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to briefly review the policies that you guys would be approving this evening to update. This is TASB's recommendations. The majority of these are aligned to policy changes to the new laws that came into effect, and then there's some cleanup that you'll hear where they're aligning policies to other policies. So not anything major here. BBD local, there's a new House bill that requires that a trustee be ordered to complete training on public information requests, Public Information Act if there is a violation. BBFA has to do with conflict of interest. It requires trustees to ethically notify the school district and disclose financial interest in the school district. CKC local has to do with aligning our emergency operations plan to administrative procedures. CKEC is aligning the practice for school resource officers to the new requirements as outlined by law. CQC local requires that the school district create administrative regulations to align to the policy under the TEA Health and Human Service Commissions for implementation of technology equipment resources, which we already have in place. We just didn't have a policy that required it. DCE local employment practices clarifies that all employees that are terminated do have the option of requesting a hearing with the Board of Trustees during the time in which the contract would have been valid. You can no longer wait till after the contract has expired to have that hearing. DGBA is a grievance policy, and DGBA is one of those that they aligned all of the grievance policies, the student policy, the employee policy, and the community grievance policy. You'll hear that come up here in a second. EEH has to do with the mental health qualifying as one of the allowances for homebound services. Prior to this, it was only a physical ailment that would qualify a student for homebound. EF local instructional resources, EF local and EFA local, both are looking at library resources and aligning the work that we already do. So this isn't new to us, but you have to go through the same process with library resources as you do instructional material resources now. There's a committee, they have to be based on standards, that type of thing. EFB local, again, aligns the library resources to HB 900, which allows for any kind of consideration and formal review. There is an outline procedure if somebody contests any materials that are in a library. FNG and GF local are both complaints, and so that was the one I just mentioned. Those are alignment so that all of the complaint policies are aligned to the current practices and to each other.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Is there any questions or comments regarding the policy update? If not, I will entertain a motion. Motion to approve by Mr. Appleby. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval, please indicate. And that passes unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our next items, which Dr. Brown is going to talk about our upcoming meetings and events.
There you go. Yes, sir. You have a list there. First day of school is on Wednesday. We're excited to see our kids come back. It's been lonely without them around, so excited for everybody to get back. And you'll notice Thursday night is Meet the Falcons at the stadium at 7:30 if you're available to come out and meet our kids that'll be playing sports this fall.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to recommend that we fill the candy bowls with some farm-to-table artisan salsa for next month, or next meeting. And that's all I got. And we are adjourned. It is 7:46. Thank you.